Okay, you are most welcome to today's session. We shall be looking at solving quadratic equations. We have four methods of solving quadratic equation, and we shall start with the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is derived from the general equation of quadratic expressions, that is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. We derive this quadratic formula using what we call completing square method. We shall look at that in our next episode, but for now we are going to look at how we apply this already derived formula to solve quadratic equations. In our example 1, we are told to solve the equation 3x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals to 0. But from the formula which says x equals to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, what is important is to first name what is a, what is b, and what is c. So we shall compare the given equation with the general equation. The general equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So we compare that general equation with the given equation in the question. Here the given equation is 3x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals to 0. So when we compare, it will help us to get the value of a, b, and c. So you realize that a is equal to 3 because a is the coefficient of x squared, and that is 3. Then b is the coefficient of x, and that is negative 3. And finally c is the constant, and that is negative 2. So after determining the values of a, b, and c, we now substitute in our equation to simplify and solve for x. So we shall substitute in our equation. Where there is b, we put negative 3. Where there is a, we write 3. Where there is c, we write negative 2. From our general equation, which is x equals to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2. So after knowing what a is, what b is, and what c is, we are now substituting in this equation, and therefore our b is negative 3, so it will be negative of negative 3 plus or minus negative 3 in bracket squared minus 4, 3 into negative 2 over 2 into 3. So we simplify this with the help of body mass, among other rules. When we simplify that, we shall come up with our x as 1.46 or negative 0.457, that is to 3 significant figures. We saw how we write figures to significant figures. If we have not yet, you go and search for that video on our channel and watch how we write significant figures. So that is how we solve quadratic equations. One, you must know the formula. You must know the quadratic formula. After knowing the quadratic formula, you must know how to relate the general quadratic equation with the given equation so that you find the values of a, b, and c. After finding the values of a, b, and c, you now substitute in the formula to find the two values of x. Let's go to our next example. In example 2, we are told to use the quadratic formula to solve the equation 5x squared plus 9x minus 4 equals to 0. The same thing we've done in example 1 is what we shall apply in example 2. The first step, you write the quadratic formula. After writing the quadratic formula, you now compare the general equation with the given equation in the question. The general equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So you compare that with the equation you are given in the question. If we compare that with this equation, which is 5x squared plus 9x minus 4 equals to 0, 5 is in the position of a, b goes with 9, and negative 4 is the constant c, meaning that a equals to 5, b equals to 9, and c equals to negative 4. So after getting the values of those, now we substitute in the formula and simplify to get the value of x. Remember, our formula is x equals to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So when we replace these unknowns with their respective values, we now simplify to get the value of x. When we are simplifying, we shall consider the square, and we also multiply the 4ac. But as we are multiplying, we must take a note of the signs. Remember, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. Always keep that into your minds. Then remember that we have negative b plus or minus, meaning we have two cases combined together. We have the plus and also the minus. That's why we always get two answers, the one for the plus and the one when we consider the minus. Let us look at our next example. In example 3, we are told to solve the equation, which is 6x squared plus 3x minus 8 equals to 0. Still, we compare this with the general equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. And when comparing, we realize that 6 equals to a, 3 is b, and negative 8 is c. So after getting these values of a, b, and c, we now go back to our quadratic formula and substitute for a, b, and c. Please don't forget the signs. For instance, c is negative 8. Don't forget the negative. And make sure that as you are simplifying, the negative on 4 multiplies the negative on 8 to give us a positive. And still keep in mind that we have two cases. We have negative 3 plus or minus. So we first consider the plus and also consider the minus. That's why we have two solutions. One is for the plus and one is for the minus. So we simplify and we get our final answers. Those are the values of x, or they are the roots. In our example 4, we are told to solve the equation, which is 1 over x plus 8 plus 3 over x minus 6 equaling to 10. This is another application of quadratic equations. When you look at this question, you can't realize that we shall end up with a quadratic equation. But if you know how to deal with fractions, you probably come up with the quadratic equation, because we shall find the LCM, which is the product of the denominators, and then you can also multiply the denominators and you cross multiply to get the numerator. For instance, it will be 1 into x minus 6 plus 3 into x plus 8. That is when you cross multiply over the product, that is x plus 8 into x minus 6. So the easiest way could be you cross multiply and the denominator is the product of the two denominators. After that, you will get x minus 6 times 1, which gives us x minus 6 plus 3 into x plus 8 over the product of x plus 8 and x minus 6 equaling to 10. Then you are free to cross multiply from here by making 10 a fraction when you divide by 1. So when you say 10 over 1 and you cross multiply again, that's when the fraction disappears. So you end up by getting 4x plus 18 equaling to 10 times x plus 8 into x minus 6. So you open brackets and simplify. After simplifying, we shall collect like terms where the squares are brought together, then the x's are brought together, and those that are constant are also brought together. And then you realize that since we have the square, we shall come up with a quadratic equation, which is 5x squared plus 8x minus 249 equaling to 0. That is a quadratic equation. And then we shall solve this using the quadratic formula by determining the value of a, b, and c. After determining those values, we substitute in the formula to get the values of x. Hope we are together.